The wind howled across the jagged cliffs, carrying with it the sharp tang of salt and the cries of distant seabirds. Below, the waves smashed against the rocks in a never-ending rhythm, as if warning the people that the sea was no place for the faint-hearted. The tribe stood gathered at the shoreline, their silhouettes dark against the deep orange glow of the setting sun. Fires flickered behind them, their smoke curling into the sky, mingling with the mist from the crashing surf. Elders, their faces weathered by time and hardship, spoke in low, deliberate tones, their words heavy with both hope and caution. They spoke of visions, lands beyond the horizon where game was plentiful, rivers ran sweet, and no rival tribes stalked the shadows. Mothers clutched their children closer, the little ones watching with wide, questioning eyes. Young hunters worked in silence, their hands busy binding the last strips of sinew and hide to the reed-framed vessels, every knot tied with the knowledge that one loose stitch could mean death in the open sea. The air was thick with unspoken fears. Some looked out at the darkening water as though staring into the mouth of a great beast. Others saw only a path to a better life. Above them, seabirds wheeled and screamed, and the wind tugged at hair and clothing, urging the tribe toward their choice. In the distance, the horizon seemed impossibly far, yet it was the only way forward. Tonight, they would push their boats into the restless water, leaving the land of their ancestors behind, perhaps forever. Days at sea melted into one another, the difference between morning and evening marked only by the sun's punishing glare and the stars' cold watch. The boats groaned and flexed with every swell, their reed and hide frames creaking like tired bones. Salt spray coated everything, skin, hair, the few tools they carried, turning their world into a crusted, stinging haze. The smell of brine filled their lungs until it became part of them. The paddlers kept a steady rhythm, muscles burning, shoulders raw beneath the relentless sun. At night, the cold bit deep, forcing them to huddle together beneath woven mats stiffened by salt. Children whimpered in their sleep, clutching carved bone charms for protection, while mothers whispered old songs to keep the fear at bay. The smallest of the tribe stared at the horizon with wide, unblinking eyes, waiting for the moment it might finally break into something other than water. Food was a constant struggle. Men cast lines made from twisted sinew into the waves, praying for fish, sometimes catching nothing for days. When a floating mat of seaweed drifted by, they scavenged it for clinging shellfish, breaking them open with aching hands. Every creak of the vessel, every sudden gust, made hearts leap, knowing that here, in the middle of the endless blue, the ocean was both their road and their executioner. Above them, the gulls circled now and then, their presence a faint promise that somewhere, unseen, there was land. One pale morning, when the sea and sky seemed carved from the same cold gray, a sharp cry rose from the lead boat. All paddles froze mid-stroke. Fingers pointed, voices called out, and there it was, a faint, dark line smudging the horizon. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then came the shouts, raw with joy and disbelief. Land. The word passed from boat to boat like fire leaping from branch to branch, warming every aching muscle, every hollow stomach. But as the hours passed and the coast drew nearer, joy gave way to battle. The sea, as if sensing they were about to escape its grasp, began to roar. Waves swelled higher, curling into white-tipped beasts that slammed against the fragile vessels. Spray blinded eyes, salt stung raw skin, and the boats pitched and lurched dangerously. Hidden reefs loomed beneath the surface, their jagged teeth waiting to tear the reed hulls apart. A sudden breaker hit one boat broadside, flinging two paddlers into the churning water. Shouts erupted, arms reached, sinew ropes were thrown. The current fought to drag the men under, but strong hands hauled them, gasping, back aboard. The boats pushed forward in desperate bursts, muscles straining, hearts hammering in unison. And then, through the chaos, the scent reached them. Damp soil, crushed leaves, the unmistakable breath of land. It cut through the salt like a promise, pulling them toward the narrow strip of sand that now shimmered just beyond the surf's fury. They stumbled onto the sand like people waking from a long, brutal dream. Legs unused to steady ground wavered, and more than one fell to their knees, pressing trembling hands into the warm earth as if to anchor themselves to this miracle. Salt water streamed from their hair and clothes, pooling at their feet, while their chests rose and fell in deep, grateful gulps of air that smelled of flowers, soil, and life. The cries of strange birds echoed from the treeline, their colors flashing bright between leaves. A grove of fruit trees stood nearby, heavy with ripeness, their scent sweet and dizzying after weeks of brine. Fires were sparked in shallow pits, the thin smoke curling up to meet a blue sky unbroken by storm clouds. The first meal, fish caught from the shallows and fruit torn from branches, tasted richer than anything they had known. Even the children, too weary to smile on the boats, now laughed with juice running down their chins. Scouts ventured inland, their bare feet whispering over the grass, and returned with stories of freshwater streams and herds grazing in open clearings. The people listened with wide eyes, relief slowly unfurling in their chests. This was not the place they had left behind, but it was a land that promised life. That night, they slept under the stars. The surf's roar now a lullaby instead of a threat, and for the first time in many moons, they dreamed of a future. In the days that followed, the shoreline transformed from a place of arrival into the beating heart of a new life. Driftwood carried in by the tide was hauled up onto the sand, stripped, and shaped into the frames of shelters. Palm fronds and woven grasses became walls and roofs, their rustle in the wind a gentle reminder of safety. The tribe's best craftsmen worked side by side, their hands steady despite the rawness of their skin, while children darted between them, laughing, chasing seabirds, and leaving small footprints in the damp sand. The ocean, once an enemy to be conquered, now shimmered peacefully at the edge of their world. Men stood at the waterline with spears, catching fish in the shallows, while others tested the repaired boats, ensuring they would be ready for future journeys. Women explored the forest's edge, learning which plants to gather and which to avoid, teaching their daughters as they worked. At night, the people gathered around the fire, the flames painting their faces gold and shadow. Elders told the story of the crossing, of the days without food, of the waves that tried to claim them, of the moment the smell of land broke the ocean's endless grip. Their voices carried into the darkness, each telling etching the memory deeper into the tribe's identity. Children listened with wide, wondering eyes, not yet able to grasp that the story was their own. And so the ocean became not just a barrier they had survived, but a silver road that had delivered them into a new chapter, one their descendants would remember for generations.